All right, Mr. Herman Montes, thank you very much for coming on to theboxingbar.com and welcome, sir.
Well, sure. Thank you for even inviting me. I mean, it's a pleasure.
Awesome, Herman. What's the weather like over there? You're in the Riverside area, right?
Actually,
Somewhere.
I'm in Menifee right now, and the weather's perfect. I mean, right now it's cool. It's not real hot. During the day it can be hot, but relatively it's pretty nice right now. We RV. For the time being, we've been RVing since October due to we sold our home, and now we're waiting for the home to be built that we purchased. So that should be done at the end of September,
Yeah,
maybe October.
that's what I was looking at. I saw your pictures posted online, and I think it's in Riverside or something like that. But I was like,
Yeah,
what a beautiful home, man! And
thank you.
that's
Luckily,
awesome.
yeah, God bless me. Luckily that we have a RV, so we were able to stay in our RV, and it's been quite an experience. We have stayed in it before, but never for as long as we have now. We usually use it like for a week or two, but now it's been since October, so it's a little different.
Yeah, and I'm from Oxnard, California, and our boxing guys, Robert Garcia, the trainer, and his
Right?
little brother Mikey Garcia, one of
Uh-huh.
the top fighters right now. They were all from Oxnard, and they moved over to Riverside. So it's like a lot of people are
Right.
moving over there towards that way of
Yeah.
that
It's
side of town.
booming.
Yeah,
Riverside is actually booming. No room over there in LA County anymore, so everything has moved east, and it's like Riverside just booming right now with real estate and a lot of new homes going up and what have you.
that's awesome. And where are you originally from? Where were you born and raised?
I was originally from East Los Angeles. I went to grammar school in East Los Angeles. I started out at Malabar and City Terrace, and then from 4th Street School to St. Thomas Aquinas School in Monterey Park. Eventually, we migrated over to Pico Rivera, and I went to high school there at Arancho. 1977 was when my graduation, and from that point on, when I lived in Pico Rivera, my parents divorced, and so that was I was about 10 years old, and we started to get into trouble because my dad wasn't at home anymore. He picked us up on weekends when it was his time and that, and he did pay his child support all the time, but it was like we had no discipline from my dad, and he was gone. So we started to head the wrong way, and then when we did that, the police were at my house one time, and my dad said, "Okay, you guys are getting into the gym. We're going to take you to the boxing gym." So that's how I ended up boxing. It got me out of trouble, actually. I went to the International Youth Boxing Club in Montebello. So I love boxing. I just started to just enjoy it and started training, and I wanted to be a champion. From that point on, I just wanted to be able to just become a champion someday.
Being raised in East LA, a lot of people figure, there's some bad spots and all that stuff. Did, that environment harden you up, make you guys, a little, wild at the same time, being around most likely gangs and, or, around that area? What was childhood like for you guys? You and your brother, John, who was also.
Being involved, like getting into junior high school and that, we were heading that route. My brother and myself, we were heading towards gangs, and my parents were divorced, and my dad wasn't home. I mean, he did show up when it was his time to visit us or take us out for his time, but between that, we were with my mom, and we were like basically latchkey kids. After school, my mom wasn't home; she would be working or what have you, and we were like by ourselves. So we started being mischievous, like traviesos, getting into trouble. Before you know it, we got in trouble with the law, and the police were at our door. And once that happened, we were young kids still. We were like 11, 10 years old. Once that happened, my dad said, "Okay, I'm getting you guys in the gym." So as soon as that happened, we got involved with that sport, and we loved the sport, and was able to traveling like with different competitions and stuff. We ended up with Junior Olympic Nationals competition. Like I went to Rapid City, South Dakota, and it was a great deal because I felt like, wow, I was able to just make it to national competition. That's pretty good. If you can win your competition here where you live, and then regional competition was for me was in San Diego. To win that and then be able to win that and then go to a different state at the age of 14 years old. Wow, that's pretty good. I mean, hey, I'm going to get to fly on a plane to go fight somewhere. I was proud.
And back it up a little bit also, your father, I read, was, he did fight in the amateurs or something, right?
Yes, my dad did amateur boxing when we were real young. There was trophies on the mantle of the fireplace, And we used to look at them, and my brother would say the same thing. We'd say, "We want to box, we want to do it, we want to do it." And my dad would always say, "No, no, no, no," you know. But then later on in the years, we headed the wrong direction, and he said, "Okay, time to take you guys to the gym." So we ended up.
Your dad was probably, he was used to that type of stuff. But what did your mom think?
She was more negative about it. She was afraid for us. She didn't want to see us get hurt. She did go and see us compete as young junior fighters, and we would win and stuff. So she would be happy. I mean, but always she was worried for us. Even in the professionals later on in life, she was worried for us. She would go and watch us boxing that, but she was always worried for us, and prayed for us and what have you. I guess any mother would. That's just normal, to be watching your son or in a competition where it's, one-on-one boxing.
And right now, you brought up a lot of your amateur moments. How do you know when it's time to, before going into the pro race?
In my way of explaining, I was a junior fighter from, I'd say, 11 years old. I started out at Lincoln Park with Eddie Rodriguez. He used to run those boxing shows back before USA Boxing was around. And it was basically, you could box with no headgear and you'd box with no t-shirt on, and you could just get in the ring and box. There was no rules, actually. It was just, they did it basically like the professionals. And we'd go 3 rounds. It was a minute per round, and we'd box, and we just got into it with whoever was your opponent. They matched you, and you went at it. And eventually, and I lost my first 2 amateur fights. I got beat up, and it was like my dad would tell me at that time. He would say, "Hey, mijo, try baseball, or try." He was just like thinking the way I take it. He was like, wow, my son doesn't have it for boxing, but I had a passion for boxing. I wanted to be a good boxer. I wanted to try to, be a professional in my dreams at that time. I was only a young kid, but hey, when I grow up, I want to be a main eventer at the Olympic Auditorium if I can be, So I had a drive for it. So by the time I turned 18 years old, I already had over 150 amateur fights. So I already went to different competitions and national Golden Gloves and what have you. I went to Hawaii for the Nationals in 1977. I won the Golden Gloves here in the regional competitions against a guy named, what was his name? Larry Duran. He was from Oxnard or Ventura out that way. And from that point, I was able to go to the Nationals at Hawaii. And that was something to be proud of, So I didn't get the gold medal or the Golden Gloves medal, but I went second place, which was good for me. I was happy. Got to see Hawaii for the first time, and from that point, I said, you know what? My dad and I was going to turn 18. We said, okay, let's make some money at this. So I turned pro.
You living in LA, and then your dad being a big time boxing fan, plus being an ex-fighter himself. Did you get all those perks of him take you to the gyms or take you to the these fights live? Did you get a lot of those perks because of that?
Yes, I did. My dad was my trainer, so him and I had a relationship. We were always tight. We were pretty close, and he was always on me. I mean, he always took care of me as far as being a fighter. You have to be in condition. You can't be out there partying or having a good time on the side because it affects you in the ring when you're going to fight. So he was always on me, and especially for a main fight, like a special fight, he would take me away from my home and take me to his home and make sure I didn't have any sex at the time with professional, and didn't have, he kept me away from like my house for like 2 solid weeks prior to the fight. He was always looking after us because he knew that if I wasn't being serious, that I could lose the fight, an important fight. So my dad looked after us as fighters.
And a lot of people don't realize that harsh discipline, all the sacrificing of all the stuff that, you're a young kid, you want to go out with the girls and you want to go out and eat all the food and you want to hang out with your friends and, you want to do whatever on your spare time. But you sacrifice all that being a professional fighter because, there's weight you have to make, there's sacrifice you have to do and discipline you have to do. And if you don't go in there with that stuff, you're most likely not going to be successful, especially in boxing.
Yeah, especially in boxing. Yeah. To be a good fighter and to be a conqueror and victor, you have to be religiously married to the sport. It's just one thing that is a factor in boxing. You can't cut corners because it catches up to you. Your legs feel like solid iron at the bottom of your feet when you're moving around in there. Your legs feel weighed down because you're not in shape. Your legs aren't in good condition. So by the sixth round, your legs feel like lead. Oh man, and you don't want to feel that way. You want to be ready for that guy coming at you strong to knock you out. You want to knock him out, you know. So those are just the things, the factors in boxing that you have to be ready at all times.
Did you go to different gyms? Did you get different styles? Or was there one particular gym you trained at?
When we were kids, we'd go to Hollenbeck Gym over in East LA, and we boxed with the Oriella brothers back in those days. And it wasn't just like sparring. It was actual going at it, and then we, the best of each other, we would be cussing each other out at the end. I'm telling you, it's not a lie. It was like we went at it to kick each other's ass.
Yeah.
And it was eventually a verbal type of fight. You know, it was
Really?
like, I'll meet you in the pros, man. Okay, you just watch. I'm going to catch up with you in the pros. Watch.
Oh, wow.
It was like that. Well, my brother eventually got to fight Memo Oriella, and he, I think he stopped him in the 5th round over at the Olympic Auditorium. But it got like that. I mean, go to different gyms, yes, and get different sparring, you know, because you didn't always have sparring at the gym you belonged to. So you had to go out there. I remember going to Santa Monica. There was a Muhammad Ali gym. What was his name? Bojack. He was a coach there. He would run it. And so we'd go there early on a Sunday morning and get some sparring. Different gyms back in the day. What other gyms were there? There were just Resurrection Gym. When we were kids, we'd go to the Resurrection Gym and get sparring. We'd even compete there. They'd have shows there. Yeah. So we moved around at times. One of the great experiences I had as a 15-year-old kid, Ruben Olivares, he was a featherweight champion of the world, and my dad was operating the International Youth Boxing Club where we started. And he was coming in to be, he was a featherweight champion already, and he was going to be training there. He asked if he could train there. My dad said sure. So then he told me, my dad says, hey, I'm going to put you in there with a champion of the world. He's going to work with you, but you'll learn. You know,
Wow.
it's good. This guy's the best in the world.
Yeah.
He'll teach you. You can learn something. So I got in there with him as a 15-year-old kid, and I ended up dropping him on his ass. I sat him down. He was so embarrassed because there was people there to watch him because they know Ruben Olivares who didn't at the time.
El Puas, yeah.
So there was public there to see it, and I hit him with this right cross and I dropped him. Oh my God, I was sorry. I mean, I didn't expect. He opened up on me. He was pissed. So he opened up on me and hit with a hook to the liver. The first time I ever got hit with a hook to the liver. Oh man, I wanted to cry. I wanted to sit down. I wanted to quit, but my heart kept me going. I mean, I didn't want to. I would be embarrassed to stop. So I just tried my best work, but I was hurting, man. I'm telling you, I was hurting. And I finished the round, but I couldn't come up for any more boxing with him. Wow. Oh man, what an experience! But then I started using that left hook to the liver with my opponents, and it did help a great deal. I got to box with Bobby Chacon as a 15-year-old kid. He was another great featherweight champion who taught me a lot. You know, taught me to keep my hands up and not get hit because he hit so freaking hard. I boxed with Danny Little Red Lopez later on. We became stablemates, and I was Benny Georgino's stable. So Danny Lopez was on his table, Albert Davila, Jaime Garza, my brother Johnny Montes. Who else was on his table? Just different fighters, myself. You remember Jaime Garza? He was a super bantamweight champion.
Oh, yeah, he was a great fighter, man.
And other fighters that were on the table. But we did some great traveling, got to go with Danny Lopez to when he defended his title in different areas like Utah, Las Vegas. So it was great experience. And like I said, if I can do it again, I'd do it tomorrow. I'd start. I mean, I love and miss the conditioning part of it all.
And you brought up Ruben Olivares, El Puas, you know, getting hit with that hook there.
That hook to the liver.
That everybody was scared of, you know, and he knocked out actually. He knocked out a lot of fighters like that, man. Yeah,
if you go to YouTube and watch Ruben Olivares' fights, you can see that beautiful left hook he had to the liver. Awesome. You know, it stops your blood flow when you get hit to the liver. It stops your blood flow.
Did you ever go to the Main Street gym to train?
Well, that's where I trained most of my boxing career in the
Wow.
professionals, because that's where the Giorgino stables worked out of. So
Okay.
yeah, it was Main Street Gym every single day.
Yeah.
And you know, you get up and you don't want to go to work that day. You just don't feel right.
Mhm.
Well, I'd get up sometimes and I'd feel like, man, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to go to Main Street to go box with Danny Little Red Lopez. That guy had a right hand, man.
What was it like to train inside that gym? I mean, for someone, let's say, if you had to describe it, somebody hasn't gone in to see it, and you just had to describe it. How would you describe that gym?
It was real old. You walked up the stairs, and then when you got to the wood and flooring, when you walked through the doors, it was you saw Rip. There was an old black man there with a cane, and he was the guy that collected the quarter for you to go in and watch boxing. And if you didn't give him a quarter, he would whack you with that cane. No lie, I'm not making it up. I'd seen him hit guys with a cane that they didn't want to pay to come in and watch different professionals box. You know, his name was Rip. But when you walked on the floors, you could hear the creaking of it because it was such an old building. You could hear when you stepped, you know, the wood was like making a creaking sound.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go into the boxing, the dressing facility, like you had your own room. It was a small little closet type room, and you got to walk in there, unlock the door, and walk in and change and get ready to spar. Wrap your hands. They had wooden tables for you to lay down and do your sit-ups later on, or get your massage from your trainer. You can take a shower there. There was a few actors that I was able to see that went in there and worked out. There was a guy named Fred Ward. He did Remo Williams movie back in the day. I don't know if you know Fred Ward or heard of him. He was a good actor. There was who else walked in there? It was Sylvester Stallone who walked in there. He was doing a movie across the street. It was called Fist, and that was before Rocky. They did a movie called Fist. And who else? There was Ed Asner who would walk in. He was an actor, and he would sit down and watch everybody spar. You know, great fighters sparring and stuff, because there was always good sparring to go in there and just sit down and watch. You know, you would be amazed to see good boxing in there. Just great pros. You know, there was great trainers in there. Memo Soto, there was Larry Soto, there was Pat. I forget his last name now. But just so many there's Ben Villaflor in there. There was Joe Ponce. Just old-time trainers that are past now. Rest their soul, Lord. But, you know, they're just great names in those days.
You never knew what you were going to see in there.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
miss it.
That's awesome. You made your pro debut in June of 1977. What do you remember there? It was at the Olympic Auditorium, the historic Olympic Auditorium. What was it like being in that auditorium, number one, and for your pro debut? Were you pretty nervous as hell?
Oh yeah, I was pretty nervous. I had butterflies, and being able to go to the Olympic and fight for the first time was exciting. It was nerve wracking. It was, I got to win. I got to go in there and win this fight. Now I don't want to lose. I got to be a winner, and I know that I trained hard for it. So I always put that in my mind. Hey, this guy didn't train as hard as I did. I trained. I ran hills, man. I used to run gradually uphill. So I know this guy didn't do this. So that's how I would psych myself up, so that I would walk in there and be able to win. And, you know, I was a pretty good puncher, so I could knock somebody out if I hit you either with a right hand or a left hand. So I feel like there was guys that ducked me. They wouldn't accept the fight with me, so they went around me. And a lot of the fights that were supposed to happen, they're just things that happen in boxing, unfortunately. But yeah, like you said, what was it like to go and fight at the Olympics? That was my dream as a young kid. So I needed to fight a main event there, and eventually I did. And I fought a few main events. I think I fought 21 fights there at the Olympics. I counted one time. And it was something that I left there in history that me and Pipino Cuevas filled that arena up for the very last time. And that was in 1985, March 7th.
Wow, and most of actually your fights, like you were saying, were at the Olympic Auditorium. And I can't even imagine, like, being inside, you know, what they call the dungeon, you know, walking through that walkway to go to the ring, you know. I mean, that alone, I'm sure it's very...
The walls, they were like brick, concrete, cold, filling down in the dungeon, I called it, down in the catacombs. It was cold down there. It wasn't warm. It was, the walls were cold, and you lie down on this table and you just waited till it was time for you to be called out to go and box. And when I got a main event fight, it took maybe 8 fights before I actually had to go out there and fight. And you always wonder, well, what's going on with this fight? Is there a knockout or is there not a knockout? Sometimes you hear roaring from down below. You'd hear the stomping on the ground, roar of the people, and you think, okay, I hope this is a knockout so it's my turn next, The anticipation and the nerves, you wanted to get out there and just get it over with. Eventually, I would put earphones, and back in those days, there was a Sony Walkman that I had. And I put that Sony Walkman to my ears, and I listened to Latin jazz, because Latin jazz was something that I liked. It was like Pancho Sanchez or who else was it? Mongo Santa Maria type of music, and it would just psych me up. So I put that on, and it would take my nerves away, and I just wait until they called me to go and fight. My people were there next to me, so they were able to tap me on the knee and say, okay, let's go. It's our turn. And there we go,
And like you said, you did have a lot of strength and power. You did get a lot of knockouts there in your first, let's say, 17 wins. On your 18th win, you fight a guy named Herman. It was a guy that you were supposed to just blow over. And
I should have knocked him out.
Yeah, he should have been another victim of yours. What happened there? What exactly happened?
I'd say about a week and a half prior to this particular fight, I got into it with a truck driver in the street over on Whittier Boulevard in Montebello. He cut me off, and I honked at him. I had just got out of the Main Street gym, actually. And I honked at him, and then he got pissed off because I honked at him, and then eventually we got to a red light. He pulled out of his car and hit my car with his door. He was in a bobtail truck. And I says, hey, man, I'll put you in the hospital. I'm telling you, don't approach me. I'm going to put you in the hospital. Well, I didn't know that there was a bus driver with people in this bus behind me watching everything. When he got out of his truck to come and approach me, he put his right hand back to hit me. So he was telegraphing his right hand. I just went boom, boom, 1, 2. And his eyes went white before he even hit the ground, the asphalt in the street. The back of his head hit, and it sounded like a hard-boiled egg hitting the street. And then I saw blood from each side under his head because he was out on the street. I thought I killed him. So that was in my mind all the way up until my fight. I mean, I didn't want to hit nobody anymore. I was like in the shower and I could see it. I would try to close my eyes and just wash my hair and what have you. But that was in my mind. So it threw me off. It just, I was disturbed over it. I didn't want to hit nobody anymore. So I had a fight, and then following Thursday, and that's what caused me to lose. You're not supposed to make excuses when you lose in the boxing ring and that. But hey, that's what happened with me. He ended up being okay in that. I went to the district attorney, me and Benny Giordino, my manager, and he didn't show up because they were trying to strip my boxing license away from me, my professional license. But the bus driver wrote his witness, a letter and saying, hey, man, the kid got out of his Volkswagen just to protect himself because the guy was approaching him and, coming after him violently. And he put his arm back to hit the kid. I was a young kid at the time, 18 years old. And I hit him with a boom, boom, like 1, 2. Like I just got out of the gym. I was in great shape. I was boxing with Johnny Little Red Lopez. I was just quick,
Yeah.
And put his lights out. And I hope he didn't call or cuss anybody out ever again out there.
Yeah. And at the same time, though, now you got to kind of understand what these fighters that, when they fight somebody and the opponent dies, what they go through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because in your case, the guy lived and everything's fine, but in their case, it's different. And after like a first loss, everybody takes losses different, especially nowadays. Everybody wants to be undefeated, but
it's very depressing.
Like, what do you go through like after that first loss?
Oh, you're like kicking yourself in the butt. You're just like, you said, man, I should have freaking won and win this fight, like especially with Herman Quayle. I should have beat him. I hit him in the 10th round and rocked him. And I knew, I should have hit this guy earlier like this, but I just couldn't put it together. Yeah. I just had that, and it's an excuse. There's not supposed to be any excuses when you're fighting and in boxing, but that's my excuse. Hey,
The very next fight, you fight a guy named Curtis Ramsey, and you get a draw. Mentally,
Well,
was your psyche still there?
He was Razor Ramsey, they called him,
Yeah.
because he cut me with his hair. His hair is like on wire. They're like a steel wool. His hair was real short, and he hit my eyebrow, and it cut me open. So the referee, he just said, no, I'm stopping this fight. The cut's too big. So that's how it ended up a draw.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
The very next fight after that, you fight a guy with some experience. He was 49 and 11. Had a lot of fights. Ney Gordillo. And what do you remember about that fight there? That one was at the sports arena.
Yes, it was Muhammad Ali Productions, and I remember fighting him, and I think I knocked him out in about the 4th round or 5th round. He had some experience. I knew that he did, but by that time, I didn't know what I could do. I mean, I was nervous, sure. You're always nervous of your opponent. You are. But then, like I said, I would psych myself up, and I knew that I trained hard for this particular fight in front of me. I ran hills. I ran every day. I mean, I didn't miss the gym. I didn't party. I didn't do any of that. I didn't drink until about 24 years old. I started to drink. But I was away from all that. I was religiously married to the sport, So, yeah, I was ready for Ney Gordillo. And he was pretty good. I mean, he had a lot of experience ahead of me. But, yeah, I was able to win.
After that win, you get 6 other wins, and then you fight a guy named Gonzalo Montellano there in Bakersfield, and he's from there locally, and there was a split draw.
There was a draw.
It was in his hometown,
This is my question.
And he was 25 and 0, by the way.
Yeah, why would they make it a draw if that was where he was born and that was his hometown? Who won this fight? Yeah. Really? Who truly won the fight? Yeah, right?
That's true.
Come on. That's his hometown. That's his backyard. Yeah.
And right away you could tell because there was a split. So in other words, one person had it for you.
Yes. Those are the breaks in boxing. My wife talked me out of boxing. I was 25 years old. I just knocked out Cuevas, and I went to Indonesia and fought a guy over there and knocked him out and came back and waited for 6 months. Well, when I came back, I got married. And then my new wife says, boxing is very political, honey. And I think it's time that you just get out of it. I waited 6 months for a world title fight offer, and it didn't happen. So she says, it's just time to get a job now and just think of the future. And, let's both work for our future.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that she stopped me. There's times where I look back and I think, man, if I just would have stuck with it, but also she shows me different fighters that are all punched out. She goes, you see, honey? She'll tell me on the side. She says, see, baby, that's why I didn't want you to get hurt. I didn't want to see you like that. I don't want to see that happen to you. So, yeah.
Your very next fight, after that, you fight El Gato, Rodolfo Gonzalez, who was also undefeated, and that was at the sports arena. And another draw there, too, against a very tough guy, man, El Gato. What do you remember about that fight?
I would have knocked him out. Maldonado, I don't know if you know Maldonado, a coach, a manager.
Yeah.
He says, you would have knocked him out. But what happened is he hit me right smack on the groin from underneath. So he caught me with a hook. I hit him with a hook to the liver. He went, ugh! I heard him do this. And then he desperately threw this bolo shot to the groin. And it caught me, the cup caught me up, like it went up on me and it caught me perfect. So I went down in pain. And then John Thomas comes over me. My legs are like open. So he puts his knee over my crotch and he's counting me out. So I'm like, whoa, he's like, and I'm like, dude, the guy hit me low. But eventually they made it a knockout where Rodolfo knocked me out, right? Mm-hmm. So then we had to show the tape. We had a VHS back in those days. It was a video. We took it to arbitration in San Diego, me and Benny Giorgino, and we showed the tape, and they immediately changed the decision to a technical draw because they saw what he did. He hit me down to the groin, but John Thomas, I think, working for the promotions, was trying to make it a knockout for the promotion, for this Gato Gonzalez.
Right.
And that's just boxing. I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, politics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One fight I didn't know too much about because I don't think I've ever seen a video of it was when you fought James Buscemi in his hometown of Beaumont.
Yes.
You lost there by KO, but what happened there? I never heard anything about that fight.
This is another excuse, but it's the truth. I ended it with STDs. I start messing around on the side, and I picked up this girl. I was a young kid still, so I'll call her a girl. Picked her up on the boulevard, and we had sex, and I ended up with STDs. Oh. So it fucked me up big time. Yeah. I was like in pain all the time. My glands under my cheeks were always like swelled up, and I felt a flu feeling all the time. I broke out in these like open sores. They were called herpes. Oh man, I suffered with all that. I mean, I had it in my eyelids, I had it in my ears, I had it on my head. It hurt so bad. I wanted to die. Wow. It affected me, and I paid the price because for a whole year it was like that with me. I had always feeling aches and pains. I didn't want to box. I didn't feel good about boxing. I just had this flu feeling. So when we got to Houston, Texas to fight Bubba Bashimi, I was in bed the night before the fight, and I called my dad because he was in the next room at the hotel. And I said, Dad, man, I'm not feeling right. I have a fever right now. I can't do this. He goes, oh, you have to do this. What are you talking about? We came so far, and there's a lot of money involved, and blah, 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 blah. So I fought, but I didn't have the sting. I didn't have the punch. I didn't have no drive. I just was. I mean, I hit Bubba Bashimi and I rocked him, but I didn't have nothing to finish him off with. So he stopped me. I went down in about the 6th round, I think. He dropped me like 3 times. I was just too weak. My legs were weak. I didn't feel, when you have the flu, yeah. I felt like that. So that messing around, man, it caught up with me.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
What was it like fighting in Tijuana when you fought Jorge Vaca, who was a pretty tough guy? What do you remember about that fight there in Tijuana?
This is the truth. I didn't know who Jorge Vaca was. Yeah. I didn't know that he was a national champion in Mexico. I didn't know any of that. I just went to fight Jorge Vaca. I heard of his brother, Felipe Vaca. I just know he was a fighter, and he's pretty known. I mean, but I went to fight Jorge Vaca, and I thought, okay, let's go. And so I fought him, and he was a tough cookie. He had these broad shoulders, and he was tall, and he had long arms, He was bigger than me, but it was hard to get to punches in because he had such a long reach. So when he threw his combinations at me, I had to avoid somehow and get underneath his punches to hit him. So it wasn't easy, but I eventually caught him with a left hook to the liver, and I put him out in the 2nd round, I believe. And he went down. He couldn't get up. He couldn't start. He couldn't continue. He was just out. So then later on, when I beat Cuevas, we had another, Maldonado was doing the management for me at that time. And he says, hey, Herman, you want to fight Jorge Vaca again? And I was working at the time. My new wife, she said, or my wife-to-be, she says, honey, there's a place where my brother works and they're hiring. Do you want to try working at Dalco Ramey in Anaheim? Dalco Ramey made the batteries for, Dalco batteries. Mm-hmm. And they pay pretty well. Do you want to go and try that? So I did. I was trying to get married and eventually, get into some corporation or something where I can make a living. So I tried it, and I was cutting corners when I worked. I wasn't running like I should. I was doing it 50% rather than 100%. So when I took that fight with Jorge Vaca again, he stopped me on a cut. Now, this is my question. When you're a fighter out there and you see people get cut, different fighters, they allow it and they let it run. They let it go. They're bloody and everything, but they still let the fight go. But when I got cut, they stopped it immediately. They wouldn't even let me continue, just knowing that I had this cut over my eyelid. At least one more round. Maybe I would have went out there and knocked him out because I knew that I was cut. But they didn't give it that opportunity. They stopped the fight right now. I think he cut me and probably stopped me on the 2nd or 3rd round at the sports arena, at the LA Sports Arena. But that's boxing for you. That's politics.
Yeah, well, you're right, because remember when Chavez fought Oscar for the first time, and in the first 30 seconds, Chavez's cup was opened up, and it bled profusely, and they let it go for 4 rounds. And Chavez, he was a bloody mess.
You see? So that's boxing for you, politics, and they have plans for the fighter to go on and do something after they get a win. Yeah. I think that's the way it happens,
After that first Jorge Vaca win, you get your notice that you're going to fight, like you said, one of your idols, Pipino Cuevas.
Yeah.
What was it like to get that notice that you're going to be fighting this, icon of a Mexican fighter and one of your idols?
It was unbelievable. It was like exciting at the same token. It was, wow, I'm going to fight Pipino Cuevas. This is amazing. This is like, I can't believe this. Yeah. But I knew that, God, he can hit hard. I knew that I had to train hard, but then I can hit hard too. That's my mind. That's the way I thought and told myself. So I started training for this particular fight. It was supposed to happen in the beginning of '84. And then I'm training, going to the gym. Maldonado one day says, Herman, they called the fight off. I says, what? He says, yeah, I'm already ready to go, ready to fight this champion, ex-champion. And I got discouraged in a sense. And he says, yeah, something happened with Cuevas. I don't know what it was. I think he had the flu or who knows. Anyway, so then, okay, well, I hope it happens eventually because I'm looking forward to the money also. I mean, that was my only income. Working no work for me. I mean, I didn't want to work at that time because I had to fight. You have to put 100% into boxing, So, like what happened with Vaca when I got that job, see? And if had I not had that job and not trained half-ass and trained fully, then I would have knocked them out again or stopped them. But that's just what happens in life.
What did you think of the whole scenery there? You're at the Olympic Auditorium. You got a heavy Mexican crowd, a lot of Mexican Americans too. But then for some reason, everybody always goes for the Mexican. Is that what happened? Is that what happened in your case as well?
Yeah. And the first round, all I could hear was Mexico, Mexico, Mexico. But then I start catching them and hitting them and rocking them, and then you heard Herman, Herman, and it was back and forth. Mexico, 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 Herman, Herman, Herman. It was like that, back and forth. Yeah. 10,000 people there. It was a full house.
You fight Jorge Vaca. You already explained that one on the Sports Arena in LA. Then you fight your very last fight over in
Indonesia.
Indonesia. Yeah, you said that you went there in the amateurs. What was it like fighting there? Why did you choose to fight there and end there?
Well, Maldonado was managing me at the time. He said, "Hey, Montes, you want to fight over in Indonesia?" And I says, "Well, who am I going to fight?" And blah, blah, blah. He says, "Oh, we're going to fight this kid named Francisco Lisboa. He's an up-and-coming fighter for them. I mean, he's a champion over there, but, yeah, I mean, they're going to give you $15,000. I says, well, that's pretty good pay. I mean, it's better than nothing. I mean, it's better than $5,000. I'll take it, Plus, I get to go to Indonesia. And then, I was going to go there for 2 weeks prior to the actual fight. So, okay, let's do it. So my dad went with me. And we had a great time. I mean, I wasn't married at that time. So we went, after I knocked him out, we went to Bali. There was an island over there that they said I could stay there for a whole week for free. Well, of course they wanted me to go spend some of my money that I made. But we went there, I think, for 3 days because when I went there, I bought my wife her diamond ring and we were going to get married right after I got back from Indonesia.
Going into Indonesia, did you know that was going to be your last fight, or did you have it still up in the air as far as where your career was going to go?
I didn't know that was going to be my last fight, but when I got back home, I got married, and I was so in love with my wife. She just talked me out of it, boxing and whatever. And she says, honey, it's just so political, and you did your best, and you're a great fighter, but it's time to work, time to get a job now. We're married, and that's about our future. And I did. I'm retired now, and I retired in 2014, and my wife just retired recently in December of 2019. So we're both retired, and we are RVing it. I mean, we've been able to travel. We went to Europe on 2018, and then 2019 we went to China for a vacation. And then we sold our home, and then now we're waiting for another home to be built. So we're in that process right now. Been an experience living in an RV for a year. Hey, never thought I'd do that in my life.
And like you said, you were pictured in Gene Aguilera's hit book, Mexican American Boxing in Los Angeles. What did you think of that? Do you know why he chose you to be on the cover there?
No, it was the way it happened was I didn't know Gene Aguilera, but eventually he called me up when he got my number, and he says, "Hey, this is Gene Aguilera, and I'd like to, interview you. And there's a possibility that I write a book, and maybe we can use you on the cover someday." And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, right, what have you. And then he had other prospects to be on the cover of the book. Also, I know Oscar Muniz was one of the prospects, and I don't know who else, but there's some other fighters that were going to be. But he came to my house finally, and then I recognized this man. He was always at the Olympic Auditorium, sitting ringside, and I right away said, "Okay, you're Gene Aguilera." Okay, "Hi, Gene, how you doing?" He came into my home. He stayed at my house for like 5 hours. It was my daughter's birthday that day, that weekend, and my wife was getting ready because we were going to have people over that evening and what have you. But Gene didn't realize, he didn't know, and I eventually told him. But I said, "Hey, man, that day my wife was a little upset because you stayed a little long, and I didn't think you were going to be that long either." But he stayed, and he was looking at pictures and different photos that I had of boxing. Wow. And he took them, and then he said he was going to do a book, and I'm a possibility on the cover. So I thought, okay, I won't keep my fingers crossed because you never know. I don't want to be let down and that. So he'd always call me every now and then and say, "Herman, the book's coming out, man. The book's coming out. You might be on the cover. They haven't decided yet, but you're a toss-up. It's going to be between you or Oscar Muniz." And I'm like, oh, man, So I was like anticipating and thinking, man, that'd be nice, but, I don't know. So one day he calls me up and he goes, "Herman, they chose you. You're going to be on my book cover, my first book in boxing. You're going to be on the cover." I'm like, "What? Wow." He goes, "Hey, man, this is like you winning the world championship, isn't it?" And I go, "Yeah, it's even better. I mean, thank you." I was so like proud, and I said, thank you. And it's like, it's like winning the world title. I didn't get the world title, the belt, but hey, I got a belt just being on a book cover, especially boxing.
Right.
I mean, it talks about a lot of LA boxers, great fighters from even the early 1900s. So, that's cool.
I have that book.
I'll take it.
Yeah. And like you said, you didn't win the world title. Let's say when you beat Cuevas and you should have got a title shot. Who were the champions at the time?
It was Roberto Duran. There was Yoriboy Campas coming up, and he eventually won that welterweight belt. There was there was good fighters. I mean,
I know Lupe Aquino was near Oxnard from Patapala.
He was a super welterweight.
But he was a super, yes. He went up to 154.
Yeah, junior middleweight. Yeah. I used to box with Lupe Aquino all the time over at the Olympic gym next to the Olympic Auditorium.
Yeah.
So we boxed on Saturday, Sunday mornings at 7 a.m. and we show up to the gym there and box, go at it. Yeah, he was tough, strong.
Yeah. And at that time, actually, when he was champion at 154, he was like the heaviest for many years after. He was like the heaviest Mexican boxing champion, I think, for a long time, because there was nothing past 154 and like Mexican world champions. So he was the heaviest one for a long time.
Yep. Yeah. Heck yeah. Tough sparring, too. He was strong. Yeah. You can get in there and you could hit somebody in that boxing ring at the gym. You could hit them and you feel like, God, my punches aren't doing anything to this guy. I'm hitting him with everything I got, and they just feel like there's nothing happening. It's not affecting him. And that's how it felt when I boxed with him. If I had that experience boxing with Rudy Hernandez.
I was just about to ask you if you ever sparred with him.
Hernandez.
Yeah.
Yeah. We used to spar quite a bit.
Rudy was the first guy to beat Lupe Aquino in the pros, believe it or not.
Yeah, imagine that. Yeah, he was another tough cookie, man. Being in that gym, it's like you hit him, and it is like you're hitting a punching bag, and the punching bag's not moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like that.
Yeah, tough guy. And looking at your boxing career and thinking back at all the times, are you glad that you left when you left, or do you have regrets there?
To be honest, I am glad that I left. I mean, it wasn't on my cards to be a world champion, but hey, I'm proud of where I made it. I mean, I was okay. I was not a great fighter. I wasn't a bad fighter. I mean, I did what I could do, and that's what God put me out there for. I mean, I'm a family man now, and I'm married still 35 years later, and I can talk. I can carry a conversation, and hey, thank God.
once it's all said and done, and I know you're probably going to live to be another 100 years old, but how would you want to be remembered to the people that love you, to your family, your friends? How do you want to be remembered as an individual once it's all said and done?
I want to be remembered as being respected in boxing, leaving a note to all the fighters that have an ability and the chance out there is just, you have to be married to the sport. You cannot do it half. You have to do it full. And I love everybody, and I don't need any enemies in life. I just want to be the best I can be. And I'm not a show off. I don't want to be a show off. God gave me what he could give me in life. And that's that. I just love you all, everybody out there. I thank God for everything that he's given me in life. And that's how I want people to remember me.
As a kid, I always thought, or when I was younger and was watching boxing, I always thought you did win a world title, believe it or not, because of your success and how I used to hear your name all the time. And it takes the internet and all those years later where you can look at people's records and see, I guess you never did. But, at the same time, you were a champion to me because you were, you were always a good fighter. You were always known. You were always a hit whenever you fought. People talked about you and they always said good things about you. You came out on the cover of a boxing book like Gene Aguilera's.
Yeah.
And, like you said, you're a success in life and you got all these things coming to you and you deserve them all. And
I'm no better than anybody else out there. I'm just a human being. And, I don't feel like I'm better than anybody out there. I just chose to be in the sport of boxing and I did the best that I could possibly do. And that's that.
And you did do that like a true professional, you did. And, I'd like to say thank you for everything. And thank you for coming on to TheBoxingBar.com and letting us know, who you are and what you did in boxing.
Awesome. Bless you.